And now it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Wendy Karn. Wendy is very excited to be with us today. She recently completed her Master of Divinity Degree at Meadville Lombard Theological School and a 2-year internship at Orange Coast Unitarian Universalist Church, right down the road. Wendy is currently living in Westminster, California with her husband and 3 charming cats. This fall, she will start her first ministry with the UU congregation in Santa Clarita, California. Please welcome Wendy Karn.
Thank you, everyone. Well, it's certainly a challenge to see the path of acceptance when there are so many things in our world that are absolutely unacceptable, and the list just seems to be growing longer and longer, and it's hard to know where to start if you're a caring person. And I know that you are, because you're here either in person or on Zoom. You are here among friends who are committed to putting love at the center of all we do. Unitarian Universalists embrace the values of justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interconnectedness, and generosity, even when it's hard to see it reflected back to us in the world. I visited many congregations in the past few months and participated in some interfaith work as well, and I just want you to know that you have company in this effort, good company. And I think that it is hard to feel like any of us are doing enough in 2025. That said, I hope that you are still celebrating the good things that happen to you in this time and space, because we need that. We need to celebrate the joy. I had a joy. I graduated from Meadville this past May, and I'm happy to say I was in the company of so many amazing graduates, future ministers coming into their time, and it's a beautiful thing for UU ministry all over the country. And I had one colleague that is in South Africa and trying to form the first UU congregations in Cape Town. Whoa. So one of the things that was said frequently in my seminary experience, it's still fresh, so I'm going to talk about it. That phrase was something we would say to each other when we were in the weeds. The eternal wisdom of good enough is good enough. And I'm passing this on to you right now because I believe it is true. I've learned a lot in school about theology and history and religion and leadership and a whole bunch of other things I did not expect to learn there. One of the biggest things is I learned a lot about myself in this experience. Seminary is not the only place you can get a crash course in self-acceptance, thank goodness, but that's just where I started working on it. And it wasn't a particular class in self-acceptance, but you know, it's not the worst idea to consider putting one in there. We can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do more and be more in this world of so many unacceptable things. In her book, Tara Brach, who I just found out recently was raised Unitarian Universalist, very famous Buddhist practitioner and teacher now. Tara Brach says, radical self-acceptance takes courage. It is not ignoring or pushing away issues with ourselves. It's facing them head on, exploring them with gentle curiosity, taking the lessons and leaving what weighs us down. I'm emphasizing the word gentle here because it's important to tread lightly when we look at our feelings. Sometimes they can surprise us. And I'm sure the woman in the reading, Kim, did not have clearing her desk of 5,000 flyers in mind when she woke up that morning. it was over proofreading, and I'll confess, I am not a great proofreader, particularly of my own work. And I have experienced that dread. Finding a glaring error on a paper, or worse, a slide. Who are those good proofreaders in the room? Is anybody here? Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for what you do, because not all of us have that gift, and I will freely admit, I will accept that proofreading is not my thing. And good enough is a great learning. When I was growing up, I was a pretty good student, even though I couldn't proofread my own work, but there was a constant narrative from my parents and teachers that I wasn't living up to my full potential. Did anyone else get this? I got that a lot, yeah. So when I was in kindergarten through grade 12 and beyond, I kind of shrugged it off, at least I thought I did. I mean, I got into college, I earned my degree in English from Cal State Fullerton, but at some point though, that narrative had taken root deep somewhere in my being, and I started my first semester in seminary diving headfirst into my call to ministry that had been just chasing me for probably a decade or so, and I was a little nervous, wondering if my brain that was heading into the twilight years of middle age was up to that task. But I loved being a student. I loved the work even when it was hard, and I loved being at my internship site at Orange Coast. And for the first 2 years, I drank in so much feedback. Like it was water in the Sahara. I appreciated it. It felt helpful. And it showed me where I needed to do more investigation, where I needed more practice. As with anything you go deep with, you find there's really very few answers and just a whole bunch more questions. We can't learn it all, but good enough is good enough. And then the summer before my third year, I had some circumstances in my personal life that were very difficult, and I didn't really have time to process them because time just goes on, right? I found myself doing some very uncharacteristic things like missing a few meetings, driving past my exits on the freeway, not sleeping very well. These are all things that, are kind of me, or kind of not me rather, but all the things that are me that I normally struggle with, like proofreading and technology sometimes, or sending my keys down somewhere in the house in a mysterious place, and yeah. And also procrastination. My procrastination became amplified, and the procrastination was really the biggest problem. All those narratives about not living up to my potential showed up in spades, and although I had a lot of support, I just couldn't hear it very well at that time. And I'm here to tell you that our bodies sometimes know more about us than we do. I was getting my work done, but I was getting it done with less than an hour before the midnight deadline sometimes, and it was like my body knew on some level exactly how long it would take me to finish. And when I turned something in, I was completely certain that it was not my best work. And occasionally I would actually do the math to see how bad the grade could be without disturbing my grade too much. And the grade is not as important as the learning, and I know this, but it was very stressful for me, and I'm generally somebody who kind of builds some hang time into the schedule, and I think it's safe to say that we all have a limit for this kind of thing, and I was well past mine. Good enough is good enough was not working its magic in that moment, and so after going through this for a number of weeks and maybe a couple months, I was speaking with my academic advisor. She was with me the entire time I was in school, and I shared with her that I had prepared myself to receive any grade, on a paper that I had recently turned in for another class and spent a lot of time on, which she thought was kind of unusual because I hadn't seemed to have had a time management problem or a confidence problem necessarily. But I did, and we talked more about that, and she asked if someone in my life was there for me that I could reflect to about some of the deep stuff and maybe examine this a little further. So I let her know that I did have someone. I was grateful that she offered me a pause to remember that. It's kind of like when you find yourself stopping at a yellow light and you're kind of grateful for that moment to pause. Like, oh, I don't have to drive right now. I get a little break. And I realize it can be kind of hard to talk about the places where we carry our deepest insecurities with the people close to us. Sometimes we don't even know what they are unless we have the freedom to talk with someone that has a bit of objectivity about us. I took her suggestion and reached out to someone in my care community and remembered that shame and doubt tend to hide in the shadows, and I felt a kinship with this woman from the reading as I began to examine my feelings through meditation. Our feelings can be great teachers when we examine them with curiosity instead of aversion or hiding from them. So the procrastination struggle, it was in that conversation and in that meditative time that it was suggested to me that procrastination can be a form of perfectionism. And perfectionism is really the antithesis of self-acceptance. And I would tell anyone striving to be perfect in this world or any world that it's unlikely that it's even possible, and it's definitely not healthy. Even the people that we think have it all together, well, they may also misplace their keys. They may also feel like they definitely don't have it all together. And there was some times when I came to the realization that maybe what had happened is that some sort of ancient switch flipped in my mind, in my body, in my feelings, reminding me that I was not working up to my potential. I was not as good as I could be, and it kind of stopped me in my tracks as I was going through this work. And I started making notes about the times when I would feel doubt or worry or judgment. And I remembered that thirst for feedback that I had not even that long ago, and leaned into any wisdom that might be there, recapturing a beginner's mind. Another lesson from seminary, though, I'll share this with you, is take what is helpful and leave the rest. Take what is helpful and leave the rest. It can serve us sometimes to examine our stories in that way when we look at what we learned from an incident rather than replaying the incident over and over in our minds. We all lose our composure sometimes, folks. It's just a thing we do as humans. I was also reminded of the need for self-compassion, and I do this all the time. I tell others to hold themselves in compassion regularly. Doctor, heal thyself. I needed to give myself some grace and some time to just be and hold myself in care through the challenges. And I kind of have learned to continue to note when my self-talk starts creeping in with something that I would never, ever say to someone else. Ever. I'm a self-care evangelist. I hope you all are getting sleep and taking good care of yourselves. I don't want to be a hypocrite. Need to keep those things in check. In self-compassion, we give ourselves the opportunity to check in and see if there's a need that maybe we can address. In Buddhist practice, the sacred pause is common practice. And sacred pauses, the great thing about them, they are free. You could take them anytime you need. Has it made me stop procrastinating to take a pause? No, but I'm better about it. Because, good enough is good enough. We all kind of do that sometimes, right? In these days and times, it can be easy to fall into concerns that we are not doing enough to transform this world. And self-acceptance is a gateway to accepting each other and to remember that sometimes our shortcomings, while they may be inconvenient to us, other people might think it's the most charming thing about you. We all have gifts to share with each other too, and it's okay and even encouraged to accept those about yourself, accept your gifts. We're already whole, just as we are right now, while we struggle with this crazy world, when we feel fear for our neighbors, for ourselves, for our futures, when we don't know where our keys are, when we're running late, when we lose our composure over something, we're still whole, complete. We're good. As Unitarian Universalists, we're called to place love at the center of all that we do, and are called to lead into our values of justice, equity, interdependence, transformation, pluralism, and generosity finds its relevance in many of our daily experiences. We start with ourselves, and there's a lot to transform, truly, and if you're feeling overwhelmed by it all, that is understandable. Where to even start? But sometimes remembering the words from people who inspire. One of the people who inspires me is the social activist Adrienne Marie Brown, who embraces the concept that small is all. Like the spiral patterns in seashells can be seen reflected in the cosmos of the stars in our universe. How looking at a tree, imagining that the roots down below are just as big as the roots up above. Noticing those things. How we treat ourselves can mirror or reverberate, and how we treat each other. Maybe we could start the creation of this kinder world we desire by being kinder to ourselves and being more accepting of ourselves as a gateway to being more accepting of others. I'll remind you again, you are whole, you are worthy, just as you are as you sit in your chair in this moment. Blessed be.